Time now on the Sports Daily to catch up with Matt Welsh as we recap the day there at Caufield on Saturday. Matt, a very good morning to you.
Good to be with you.
All right, the Caufield Guineas, Autumn Boy. Did you see that coming?
Look, I think if you liked that Sydney form through the Golden Rose and what he did over the winter, he was certainly right in the mix, Autumn Boy. I must concede I couldn't get him as short as the market did. But, look, he's a classy colt. The 1600 was right up his alley and just a beautiful ride from Damien Lane. He probably got a little bit more forward than many had expected from the gate, used gate one and then peeled to the outside in the straight. And he showed a really, really good turn of foot, Autumn Boy. Lovely horse, and second year in a row, Chris Waller, Damien Lane have teamed up to win the race. I thought Planet Red was good in second. He finally got a race with a bit of tempo, and that really helped him. The hard watch of the race was Observer. Settled leaders back, and he just stayed there until final 100, 150 metres when he finally got clear. I think he probably wins the race with even luck, but that's obviously subjective. He's a horse that was only second up on Saturday. He was going from 1,300 to 1,600. I suspect they'll go out to the 2,000 metres next time out and then potentially onto a derby. So he was the run of the race for mine. A sick watch for those who backed him at around the $20. The other one I could follow out of the race guys back in the field was Nepotism. Thought he just got too far back. He hit the line quite well. But look, all honours with the winner. I've got to say, I've been suspect on this 3-year-old form throughout, and I still don't think it's a vintage Guineas. But look, he did what his dad did, Autumn Boy. I remember when the Autumn Sun absolutely bolted in 2018, and he's doing fabulous things with the stallion now.
The Spruik Colts, Vinrock and also Wotan, what did you make of them?
Yeah, I thought Wotan was disappointing. He was off the bit and struggling a fair way out. He had Planet Red's back in the run. Planet Red ended up finishing second, and Wotan wasn't able to make any significant headway. Vinrock, they went quite hard, but they did have the wind at their back early. Again, I thought he was just fair, probably in a day that it was no disadvantage to be up on speed. So, yeah, Wotan's sort of been a bit of an enigma since his demolition on debut. That was on a soft 7, so maybe just needs to get back onto tracks with Sting out. I also think the mile was always a query, and I assume they'll drop him back in trip now.
Do you think Nepotism goes up to the 2,000 metres?
I think absolutely. I think that'll be right up his alley. He seems to settle quite well in the run. He didn't have a lot of luck in the straight there, so I think the 2,000, whether it's... I think he might still be in the Cox Plate. I'm not sure about that. But, a race like the Bars on Cox Plate Day, probably right up his alley. And I suspect Observer will probably head to the same race.
Matt, what did you think of the performance of Transatlantic?
Tough performance. They had the wind at their back early out of these mile races, so they ran along at a good clip, and that advantaged those on-speed horses. But, look, there hasn't been much between Transatlantic and Evaporate at their last 2 starts. They Quinella the stand-down stakes, and there wasn't much between them again. No losers, no admirers Evaporate, and if anything, probably the run of the race got too far back and then forced to make a wide run, over-raced a little bit in the early stages. He was very good. So there's not a lot between those 2 horses, Transatlantic and Evaporate. And then Athanatos came through the same form line, that stand-down stakes form line, and also ran well in 4th. And like Lucy, I thought she hit the line well again. She'll find a race over the Flemington Carnival. I assume she'll head to the Empire Rose, and she'll be most competitive there. But he's a good, tough horse, Transatlantic. He makes his own luck up on speed, and that always counts for plenty.
Queensland, they've got the AFL, NRL, and now they've got the damn Toorak as well, Matt.
They've got everything.
Yeah, far out. They're flying up there in Queensland. Sepples, just nothing really went right, did it?
No, it was a brutal watch for anyone who backed Sepples. He jumped well, and it looked like he was either going to probably sit second in the run, and then Ethan Brown, he just kept getting shuffled back on him, and then the horse got knocked over a couple of times. And I think he's pulled up pretty sick and sore after the race, much like his backers who crunched him all the way into a 6-4 favourite. So he, I think, had an off day, but B, there's clear excuses for him there, and it just never went right from the get-go.
Matt, what did you think of Giga Kick's prospects going into the Scalacci?
I was still jury out, I have to say. He trialled up against Tropicus and Neon, and the 3 of them actually ran the trifecta on Saturday. And he was under a fair bit of pressure in that trial, but look, it was a terrific performance, and I suppose in hindsight, it's bloody easy. Mark Zara dropped off Tropicus to ride Giga Kick, and Mark certainly knows what he's doing. But it was good to see this horse back in the winner's circle. I think it's been about 880 days since his last win up in Queensland in the winter of 2023. And, he's good for racing. And Clayton Douglas has put so much work into getting this horse back to something like his best. So it was a good performance. It wasn't a vintage Scalacci field, so he's going to have to go to another level to be competitive in the champion sprint at the back end of the carnival. But, look, good just to see him winning again. Tropicas was okay, I thought, up on speed. Benedetta had no luck. First start for Kieran Maher, blew the kick and probably ran better than the seventh placed would suggest. But good to see him back winning Giga Kick. It was the scene of his Bain Stakes win all the way back in 2022, which propelled him on to Everest glory. So hopefully he can take another leap forward when he heads to the champion sprint.
Heading to the champion sprint now, I understand we're a long way out, but the setup looks pretty good for him because we know the Everest horses if they do get to the champion sprint, it's at the end of a long campaign. So Giga Kick's still on the up. Sets up well for him, though.
It does set up really well. And Clayton Douglas is just really good at ticking horses over. It'll be, a bit under a month between now and, or probably a month between now and that champion sprint. He might have another little jump out in between, but he'll be cherry ripe come the final day. It's a really good point you make. I mean, a few of those horses coming out of the Everest and even I think it's the Russell Balding Stakes, that their grand finals are up in Sydney, so it can be a bit of an afterthought for those heading on to the champion sprint.
What was the main theme emanating out of the Might and Power? Was the fact that Globe won the small field, or Treasure the Moment and Buckaroo perhaps going unders, man?
Yeah, I think a bit of both, really. I think Treasure the Moment, I think, she's probably 2 plain runs now in a row, and listening to Matt Laurie post-race, he seemed very circumspect as to whether she'd press on to the Cox Plate, albeit on Sunday I think he was a little bit more upbeat from what I see in media clippings. But, she's going to need to really raise the bar to be winning a Cox Plate this year. And she had the setback with colic. So, it's never ideal when a horse has a setback mid-preparation. Buckaroo, I thought he had his chance. I thought James McDonald took off at the right time. Looked like he was going to really challenge Globe sort of coming around the home bend, but just sort of felt that mid-race surge probably over the concluding stages. And then to the winner, it was just a beautiful ride from Blake. He got probably 2 or 3 cheap sectionals from the 2,000 to about the 1,400. And then from the mid-stages of the race, he really ramped it up. So he didn't just let the field walk to the home bend like they have in Might and Powers and Turnbull Stakes in recent weeks. He actually got them running from the 800-metre mark, and that stretched his rivals. So, look, he's as good a front-running rider as there is in the country, Blake Shin, and it was a masterclass from him. And, I think the story out of the race was the ownership group. Roll the Dice Racing, they do so much for the sport. They've brought so many people into the sport over a number of years, Rob Norton and his team. And Rob spoke to Betsy on Saturday, and a lot of the owners had loaded up on the horse at 50-1 in all-in markets for the Might and Power. So not only claimed the Group 1 win, but had a significant windfall on the punt. And it was a bit of a sentimental victory for them as well, because Dean Lester, the late Dean Lester, used to have a share in the horse, and now the horse races for his wife, Leanne. So that was our tribute paid by the ownership group post-race. So I thought that was one of the moments of the day, just, the celebrations and the jubilance with Globe winning. And as I said, terrific ride from Blake Shin, because those small fields can be very tactical.
How about the race in the Australian racing calendar as a Group 1, the Might and Power? We've had some small fields over the time, and are we just having to become accustomed to the small fields in the Might and Power with, what Peter V'landys has done with the Hill Stakes up in Sydney?
Well, yeah, I think the race is probably at the crossroads. You've got the Turnbull Stakes the week before, albeit it at set weights and penalties. You've got the King Charles next week up in Sydney, probably dragging a few horses out of the race. And then, of course, the $2 million Hill Stakes up in Sydney, which is more than double the prize money. So, yeah, I think the race is at the crossroads. You could potentially try and reinvigorate it with money, but you're going to need a significant amount of money to try and generate a reasonable field. And then are you just going to ultimately take horses out of the Turnbull? So I think this whole period needs a little bit of a looking at. And, it's not good for wagering when you're constantly having 4, 5, 6 horse fields go round. There was 2 high-quality horses in the rail, 3 high-quality horses in the race. There's no doubt about it, but it won't have turned over significant, generated significant wagering interest, and that is definitely a concern. So I think, the powers that be at Racing Victoria will continue to look at that race, and ultimately in time there might be some change.
Matt, talking of wagering interest, could you believe what you were seeing, reading, hearing yesterday re Car Ying rising?
Oh, it was just an amazing day. Watching fluctuations on the exchange. I mean, at one point in the morning, I think Car Ying was about $1.70, $1.75, and then in the evening we were sort of chatting, Chris Roots, Paul Tatnall and I, and he was out to $2.60 at one point. And it's just what's so great about wagering, punting and racing. Obviously a rumour got out there and, some fascinating market machinations. So, look, it was a really interesting evening. Chris Roots has been out at Car Ying's track work this morning. Sounds like it all went very well. So all systems go. David Hayes blamed a fake social media account for the sudden drift. But again, it's just the talkability of the Everest, and it's everything that's great about racing, people having an opinion and putting it on the line.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. We'll probably get your opinion on the Everest next week, Matt, on Monday morning. Enjoy the week. Enjoy the Caufield Cup.
No, good to chat, guys. Enjoy the day. Thank you.